creation of the traditional harvesting poster was started on a project called Understanding Our Food Systems Project. So that was a partnership between the Indigenous Food Circle and the Health Unit, as well as Lakehead University. So we went and had partnerships with 14 First Nations communities in and around Lake Superior and Lake Nipigon, and created food sovereignty visions for communities, determining what food they needed and what support they needed help in being sovereign with their food. So the more sovereign you are, the less food insecure your community is going to be. So some communities, focus more on berries that's in their area. Some have wild rice. Some focus on, wild game and moose. So it was really place-based on what the community needed and what was growing in their area.
So as a professor who is focusing on researching and teaching about equitable and sustainable food systems, I'm really interested in the way that some of ideas around this are practiced and shared. And today, most of the food that we eat and have access to is controlled by large corporations and really caters to dominant cultural groups and those who can add to the profits. As a result, the food systems make Black, Indigenous, people of color quite vulnerable to issues of food insecurity. People don't have access to the kinds of foods that are part of their traditional diets.
The traditional harvesting poster represents to me a spirit of reclamation and reciprocity. Reclamation because of the ancestral teachings of the Anishinaabe people around Lake Superior and Lake Nipigon, and how we harvested foods in different moons to plan and prep for all of the seasons in the future. Through the development of the poster, we were able to really reclaim for ourselves some of these ancestral teachings that were lost from us. To our people, food was sacred, and the moons guided how we harvested, processed, and worked with these foods through the moons and the seasons. We would tell stories and songs and do cultural practices around each moon and each food that we were harvesting, and food harvesting was central to our governance systems, and the 13 moons are one of the depictions of that governance system.
So I'm really excited about the 13 Moons harvest resource as a way to demonstrate what an Indigenous food system can look like. I think the project itself and the creation of the resource was really demonstrating what food sovereignty is. It involved learning from and listening to elders, to knowledge keepers, and then sharing a lot of that information back with the communities. So I'm really excited to be able to use this resource in my own work, in my teaching, with some of the communities I work with, and also to continue to learn from it as we move forward. And as well, I've been really honored and I feel very lucky to have been part of this project and to learn so much from all the people who helped put it together.
The poster was created in collaboration with 4 elders, as well as I was attending a language class at the time, so I was gaining knowledge from the elder there and the knowledge keepers present, as well as I had researched online and got some knowledge from online resources as well. So compiling all of that, all of the teachings together, and then collectively deciding which moon was going to be represented. So wanting to focus more on what food and what teachings around food each moon was, and looking at place-based, like this poster is very place-based. So what is here for the moons could differ in a community an hour or 2 away from Thunder Bay. And everyone has their own teachings too in this, but that was pretty much the inception.
The traditional harvesting resource, it really symbolizes the collaboration that has happened as part of the Understanding Our Food Systems project. And the really exciting and cool thing is that it shows what a self-determined and sovereign food system would look like, and how it's impacted by the current food landscape, as we put it, and how things could change potentially in the future to impact Indigenous food systems.
My name is Gene Nalgijic. My Anishinaabe name is Little Bear, and I'm from the Bear Clan, and I'm from Kashkazagin and Lake Nipigon. I'm from this area, Robbins Superior Treaty area. Today, I want to talk about the January spirit moon, Nomkodaden Gizes, Anishi Anatsokazatwe, Nomkodaden. Spirit is the bear, Nomko. Nomkodaden means the bear goes into his unconscious state during that time. In the midst of winter, the bear turns to his side, the female anyway, getting prepared to have his babies. That period in January is always warm for about 2 weeks for that to happen. Nomoko, Nomkodadin, Wakadom Luktish. What that means is that the spirit, the bear spirit, that's what the people around that time celebrate. They go as a community to feast. Each family would do that, invite their traditional food, whether it's rabbit, moose meat, and wild berries that were collected in the fall, and help out the families to celebrate, in the feast, to make sure that everybody gets to eat during the winter. So that's the spirit moon. Katkuate Shing Jesus. February moon is short because the moon travels right in the middle of the earth. So that's the time the people travel at night, especially in the ice and snow, Even though it's a harsh winter, but still they were able to hunt and trap, and they're still catching rabbits and partridge and use the rest of the wild berries that were picked. And food is always abundant. People, save their food, for these celebrations. March is still a lot of snow, but in March it starts to develop heavy ice crust on top of the snow. When I was a kid, I used to travel on top of that snow. I could walk without snowshoes. That month also provide good hunting for larger animals, because they're able to track them and track them down, especially the moose and the deer, because at that time the moose barely moves, because of the crust hurts their shins when they walk on the ice. But also the hunting, the muskrats and partridges and marten and mink. Also, you can't snowshoe on top of that crust. It files down the hide and the webbing on the snowshoe, and then it eventually just falls apart. Some people do, and they just make new webbing from the mooses. In March, the food still moose and deer and partridge and rabbit and fish. And there's also ice fishing that goes with that, and a lot of times people hunt for Nemeben, Skoneben, red suckers, and then just suckers. And that's February. So thank you very much for listening.
Sugar bush moon, Sisibakwat Kandak Jesus. And it talks about Sisibakwat is sugar, and it's like when you have brown sugar and you put it in a pile, it moves, and that's sisibakwat. So from that, we've learned to make maple syrup and maple syrup candy and stuff like that. It's still one of my best sweets. It takes like about 20 gallons to make 1 gallon of syrup, so it's a lot of effort. It's about a 6 to 8 week, maybe 4, depending when the syrup runs and when it ends. So we go by nature's timeline, not ours. It's not something we can put on a calendar and say from this date to this date. We look at the trees, and the buds on there are still closed and frozen. It's not springtime yet. But when they start to swell and open up, and the geese and ducks come back, and the waterfowl, nights are not so frosty as they used to be, warms up during the day, then we might say, spring is coming. And Zagwan is here. So we always look at the nature, the signs of nature. And budding out, when the buds go poop, that's a good sign that nature's here, because they don't shrink again once they've opened. All of us tribes basically look to the, to nature and the moons. The name are 13 moons. The Gregorian calendar from Europe is 12 months and different days, number of days, whereas ours is 13 moons, 28 days. And we use the turtle as sort of where the calendar is. So there are 13 segments on a turtle's shell on his back, and you go around. And on the outside, there are 28 minor segments, one for each day. Looking at nature, we don't control it, we follow it. It controls us and our movements, when to plant, wild rice, when the buds on the plants open up and the flowers come out in May. The strawberry, last one to bloom, come out and flower, and the first one to bring forth fruit. Budding out moon, everybody likes to look at the trees and kind of happy when spring's here. And for most of us, there's a transition between summer and winter. Spring could be a little longer, it could be a little shorter. We can have a cold spring or a wet spring or a hot spring really early, and it impacts and affects summer. Odimen, they're the last ones to bloom, to bring a flower out, and the next month in May, or the flowering moon, the fruit moon, they're the first ones to bring fruit out. And what people don't recognize or understand, if you don't understand nature, is that there's a certain order to when the berries come. They just don't randomly come out. You start with the strawberry moon, blueberry, raspberry, cranberry, choke cherries, and all in order. They never change. So the strawberry moon is really important. It is a very nice plant to make. You can have tea with it, with the leaves and the root for cardiac, mild cardiac med. Bonjour. Tayan mopsis mosishan disnikas matagami skunigan donje. Makwa totem maskigianini. Hi. My English name is Jerry Martin, or Gerald Martin. I'm a community elder here in Thunder Bay, and I come from Matagami First Nation over there by Timmins. And I'm semi-retired, and I like being a community elder, doing teachings with young people in schools.
My Christian name is Marlene Sun, and my Anishinaabe name is Bushbudea Zezawazidkwe, and that is Brown Buffalo Woman. I'm here to talk about the berry moon. Most of the time women will go out and gather these berries. We make a ceremony out of it, we will go pick them together. We'll share information on how we cook them, preserve them. What we do is we take them home and we wash them up, and sometimes we'll preserve them through keeping them whole and putting them in bags so we can use them later on. And we'll make jams or syrup, and we will have them for the winter. The ricing moon is a really traditional process, and taking care of the rice is honorable. An uncle of mine, Harold Perry, who lives in Ardoch, Ontario, is the keeper of the Mahnomen wild rice, and he guards it and makes sure it's safe. When we're ready to harvest the rice, a lot of people will get together, families usually, take out a canoe. One person will be in the back rowing, and the other one in the front will have 2 cedar poles, and we'll be taking the rice and bringing it into the canoe. The rice is then put out onto tarps, and we do that to dry out the husk that's on top of the rice, which is inside the husk. And at nighttime, we'll cover it up in case it rains, and then the next morning we'll take the tarp off, and we'll continue with that same process. On the 3rd day, that's when we'll take the rice and put it onto another tarp or a canvas. So only the women in our area dance. We'll get on our dancing moccasins, because you can't dance on bare feet, otherwise you'll be cutting your feet up. So there's a special pair of moccasins that we have only for dancing on rice. We don't dance at a powwow on them, they're only for the rice. So we'll dance on that rice for about 4 hours. And while we're dancing, someone is drumming, usually singing songs and sharing the traditional music with us while we're dancing, and it gives us that encouragement. It also puts that heartbeat into us while we're dancing on it. And you can smell that rice. It smells so beautiful. It's such a different smell. I know we have our white rice in boxes. We have brown rice in bags. It's not the same as wild rice. One is manufactured and one is traditional. And the manufactured is gathered up with machines and taken care of by machines. And the wild rice is taken care of from gathering to cooking to eating in a traditional manner. So there is a difference, and I would recommend anybody to go out and try it. It's just beautiful. The changing leaves moon, how my grandmother explained it to me in a childlike way. She said, when the leaves fall on the ground, the leaves are like a coat. And what Mother Earth does is she puts her coat on for the winter, and she's protecting the roots of the trees. She's protecting the roots of our berries. She's protecting the roots of our flowers that come back every year. So that coat covers her and protects her and keeps her warm. So yes, we do get frost in the ground, but we are protected. It's like us putting our winter coat on in the winter. If we didn't have our winter coat on, we would freeze to death. When the trees and the leaves change and fall, she's protecting us. So Mother Earth is being protected by those leaves. So it's not just the changing of the leaves, it's the falling leaves. So miigwech for listening, and thank you.
Banakwe-Gisis, for myself, is when the earth returns to its normal self. As far as climate, as far as an environment, this is something we pray for. This is something we strive for, to bring back what was once pure and innocent. So with Banakwe-Gisis is when the earth is in tune with the universe. So when the earth tilts, the sun becomes less. When the sun becomes less, then the leaves become the beautiful colors that you see in the fall. The rabbit is also something that signifies change. When the earth changes, the animals, and so do we begin to start harvesting things that is meant for us to eat. The rabbit will eat the things that helps them change, that help them become that white color in the winter as part of protection, but also to become part of the warmth that it needs to survive in the winter. But rabbit can't really sustain us because it doesn't have the nutrients and protein that may sustain us. So we find different things that can help us through Benakwe Geesis. And along that time, we find deep water fish that come to the shore. The lake trout, speckled trout, all those types of things, because again, like I said, the earth tilts, the earth begins to shift. So when the earth shifts, water begins to shift itself. Just like as humans, we are built of water. So we are in tune with the earth at Ki. And when we are able to listen, Bizin Namang, to the earth, then we are able to see the things that is necessary for us. We're able to walk the shorelines and see the deep water fish along the shore. So we begin to cast. We begin to set our nets. Usually when the earth does tilt, it's letting us know when to prepare for winter, and so does freezing moon. As far as freezing moon, when we start beginning the process of fall, we pick up, we grab things like minomen, wild rice, and it's during the winter is when we start stocking up on our fall food. So when things start freezing, you'll start noticing frost, you'll start noticing more ice starting to build on the water. And again, like for ourselves, these things help us health-wise. Being a former diabetic, I realized I use the 13 moons to control my diabetes by eating what the 13 moons provide. And as for myself, I've been diabetic free now for 5 years. So when we start seeing the ice forming, starting to get thick, then we get into Atikamekgo geesis, whitefish. Like I was saying earlier with the lake trout, all those deep water fish, with whitefish, there's actually legends to help support a lot of these things we see that we know about with the 13 moons. So with the whitefish, part of the legend comes around this area right now, the sleeping giant. That legend speaks about how the whitefish sustain the people and the nations around this lake by coming to the shore, offering itself. Because at one time, we were hurting, we were having a tough winter. When we are connected to the land, we start understanding that when we see the things that are given, it is not about taking everything. It's about having balance. And the Atikamekgo, the whitefish, is the thing that teaches us about balance. We cannot be greedy because those fish won't come to the shoreline again. Just like anything that migrates, when you overkill or when you over-harvest, then the land itself will speak to these animals, these fish, these birds, and they'll find different places of migration, or the fish will go someplace else. So now Mindo Geese is on little moon, little star. It's leap year. As humans, we feel out of place at times. We feel like we don't have a part in life, just like Mindo Geese is on. So we feel out of touch, we feel out of place, just like the leap year. So every 4 years, this moon appears. It teaches us about balance again. Because in life, even for myself at my age, I've learned to become a certain individual because I'm 53, but in my heart, at times, I'm still 18. I run, I play, I fish, I hunt, but this is how I become a part of this community again, because I treat my life like a leap year. I find balance, I find help in the community, and through the community, like organizations like Roots to Harvest and Anishinaabe Food Circle, I find these guidelines in life to help myself in a way where I'm not just giving myself nutrients, but through education, through physical, again, and my outcome is my mental. So, little spirit, if you feel that way, be proud of that, because it teaches humility. Don't go beyond what you think might be right for you. Take baby steps into your own development when it comes to eating. When I was a young child, I still remember my granny telling me, you cannot drink milk anymore, because our bodies only need milk at a certain period. You don't see bigger cows trying to go after a cow and trying to drink its milk, because that growth is done. So it's up to us now to find different things to fulfill us, to help our bones grow. And that's what all these things are for. Is finding different things to help sustain us, to have a healthier life. Chimiigwech, Kinawaya. Again, Wapshkas took a name doesn't cause. Mako and Dotan. Chimiigwech.
Personally, the THR really represents, the collaboration that has come out of it. From having the elders join us, to working with community members, to then having the health unit take part, and other partners such as the Indigenous Food Circle. It's really that relationship building that I think is at the core of this project. We've built so many good connections and relationships with people. It really serves as the foundation for the project and really helps the project move forward in the future.
The work we do with understanding our food systems is based on respectful and collaborative partnerships with the Thunder Bay District Health Unit and 14 First Nation communities. The traditional harvesting resource is both a culminating piece and a foundation for our work in the future. I'm really excited to see where we're going to go in building Indigenous food sovereignty in Northwestern Ontario.